Why some memories never leave you. There is a memory in your head right now. You didn't choose it. You've never been able to explain why it stayed when everything else dissolved. But if someone asked you to describe it right now, you could. The light in the room, the exact words, the specific feeling in your chest in the moment before it happened. You don't remember what you ate for lunch 4 days ago. You don't remember most of Tuesday. You don't remember the faces of people you spent entire years with. But you remember that. You've probably assumed it stayed because it was important to you, because it mattered, because you chose, consciously or unconsciously, to hold on to it. The neuroscience says something completely different. And once you understand what actually happened in your brain, during that moment, the specific biological process that decided this experience would be permanent while thousands of others weren't, you will never think about memory the same way again. More than that, you will understand something about yourself that you have been carrying without the language to name it. Start with what memory actually is, not the metaphor your brain defaults to, not the filing cabinet, or the hard drive, or the video recording. The actual biological structure. Every experience you have causes a specific pattern of neurons to fire. Neuroscientist Eric Kandel at Columbia University spent decades documenting what happens when that pattern fires with enough intensity or enough repetition. The synaptic connections between those neurons physically strengthen. The pathway becomes more efficient. The network becomes more stable. This is called long-term potentiation. It is the physical architecture of a memory. A memory is not a file stored somewhere. A memory is a pattern, a specific configuration of connections between neurons. When you remember something, you are not retrieving data. You are rebuilding that pattern, reactivating those connections, reconstructing the network from scratch each time, which means the strength of a memory is not determined by how consciously important the event was to you. It is determined by how deeply that network was built in the moment it formed. And the depth of that construction depends almost entirely on one thing: what your brain decided was at stake. Deep in the temporal lobe, there is an almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It runs continuously. It monitors every single incoming experience against one question that it has been asking for millions of years. Does this matter for survival? When the amygdala decides yes, and it makes that decision in milliseconds, entirely without your permission or awareness, it does something that changes everything about how that experience gets processed. It releases a precise cascade of neurochemicals directly into the hippocampus, the brain structure responsible for forming long-term memories. Norepinephrine, cortisol, adrenaline, not in the quantities that produce panic. In the specific lower quantities that function as a biological highlighter, these chemicals don't just record the event. They deepen the encoding. They strengthen the synaptic connections. They make the network more redundant, more stable, harder to degrade over time. They build the memory at a depth that the normal forgetting process simply cannot reach. Neuroscientist James McGaugh at UC Irvine spent 3 decades studying this mechanism. His conclusion was direct: the neurochemical system that evolved to help your ancestors permanently remember where the predator appeared, what it looked like, and what saved them from it, that is the same system that decides which of your human experiences becomes unforgettable. Your brain is not storing memories based on what you consciously valued. It is storing memories based on what your nervous system classified as survival critical. And your nervous system has a much older, much blunter definition of survival than you do. This is where it becomes personal. Think about the memories that won't leave you. Look at them carefully, as a group, and notice what they have in common. Not the content, the structure. What was present in almost every single one? Something was at stake. Not necessarily your physical life, but something the nervous system translated into survival level urgency. Social rejection from someone whose acceptance felt necessary. The moment a relationship changed in a direction you couldn't reverse. Humiliation in front of people whose opinion shaped your sense of safety in the world. A conversation that ended something. A silence that confirmed something you had been afraid to confirm. Your brain cannot distinguish between a predator in the grass and a person who looked at you with contempt in a room full of people you needed to be accepted by. Both activate the amygdala. Both trigger the neurochemical cascade. Both get encoded with the same permanent ink. Psychologist Martin Seligman at Penn documented that negative experiences are encoded with approximately 3 times the synaptic strength of positive ones. He called this the negativity bias. It is not a dysfunction. It is the precise calibration of a system that evolved in an environment where the cost of missing a threat was death, and the cost of missing an opportunity was merely a missed opportunity. Your brain overweights the painful, Not because something is wrong with you, because the ancestors who overweighted threats survived the ones who didn't. You are the product of every generation that was too careful, that remembered too well, that carried the wound longer than was comfortable because carrying it was safer than forgetting it. But this creates a problem that is worth naming carefully. You are moving through a modern world with a nervous system calibrated for the Pleistocene. Social exclusion that carries zero physical danger activates the same consolidation system as genuine mortal threat. A harsh word from someone whose opinion shaped your identity activates the same biological highlighter as a predator encounter. The result is a library of permanent, high-resolution memories of moments that, by any rational metric, should not occupy the space they do in your life. Moments from years ago that arrive with the same clarity as yesterday. Conversations that lasted 6 minutes and have lasted in your body for a decade. A specific look from a specific person that rewired something quietly and permanently. You didn't choose to carry these. Your nervous system chose for you in a fraction of a second, based on a threat assessment that was never updated to account for the fact that social pain and mortal danger are not the same thing. If you've been carrying a memory like this, hit like. The number of people watching this right now with the same weight is larger than you think. And subscribe. What comes next in this video is the part most people have never heard. Here is the part that changes what you do with this: memory reconsolidation. For decades, the scientific consensus was that once a memory was consolidated, it was fixed, permanent, structural. Karim Nader at McGill University overturned that consensus in 2000 with a finding that was initially considered impossible. Every time you retrieve a memory, you are not playing back a recording. You are rebuilding the network from scratch. And while that rebuilding is happening, while the pattern is active and being reconstructed, the network is briefly unstable. The synaptic connections are momentarily open to modification. New information can be integrated. The emotional charge attached to the memory can shift. The consolidation window reopens. For hours after retrieval. This is why engaging with a painful memory in a context that provides new information, new safety, or new perspective can gradually change its emotional charge. Not erase the memory, not rewrite what happened, but integrate it differently. Connect it to new networks. Reduce the survival level urgency that makes it intrusive. And this is why rumination, returning to a painful memory repeatedly without any new information or context, can make it stronger rather than weaker. Every retrieval that reconsolidates with the same emotional charge, the same threat assessment, the same physiological urgency rebuilds the network at the same depth. You are not trapped by your memories, but you are directly affected by how you return to them. Returning with the same story, the same physiology, the same closed loop makes the network more stable. Returning with new context, new safety, or even just new language for what happened gives the reconsolidation window something different to work with. There is one more thing worth understanding about the memories that stay. They are not accurate. Every time you reconstruct that network, you introduce small variations. Details shift. The emotional center of gravity moves slightly. The version you are remembering right now is not the original event. It is a reconstruction of the last time you remembered it, which was a reconstruction of the time before that. The memory that feels most solid, most vivid, most real. That is also the one that has been reconstructed most often and therefore changed the most. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus at UC Irvine has spent 5 decades documenting the malleability of memory under retrieval. Her conclusion is uncomfortable for most people. The memories you trust most are not necessarily the ones that are most accurate. They are the ones you have returned to most. The story you have been telling yourself about what happened may be the most rehearsed version, not the truest one. Go back to the memory you thought of at the beginning, the one with the texture and the weight, the one from the Tuesday afternoon, or the specific room with the specific light. Your nervous system made a decision about that moment in milliseconds. It classified something as survival critical. It flooded your hippocampus with consolidation chemicals. It built that network deeper and more permanently than almost everything else that happened that year. And it did all of that without asking you. The question worth sitting with is not why that memory stayed. The question is what your nervous system decided was at stake in that moment, and whether that assessment still serves you, or whether it is a Pleistocene threat evaluation being applied to a 21st century experience that deserved a different response. You didn't choose your unforgettable memories, but you can choose what you do with them the next time they surface, how you return to them, what you bring with you when you do, whether you reconsolidate them with the same story or with something new. The memory doesn't have to be permanent in the way it has been. It just has to be understood. Drop a comment. Which year does your most persistent memory come from? Not what it is, just when. I want to see the pattern across everyone watching this. If this gave you language for something you've been carrying, hit like, subscribe. The next video goes somewhere that will change how you think about the memories you keep going back to.